What's happening, guys, girls, everybody else in between? Another crazy kind of overnight news story broke. This, MMA is a crazy, crazy sport for, crazy narratives and just general news. It never fails to deliver. And obviously, different time zone, Ireland, States, we kind of miss out on some of the big developments dropping overnight. But a big fight announced for UFC 230, which is to take place in Madison Square Garden. Nate Diaz coming out after 2 years is going to take on Dustin Poirier. Poirier last night on Twitter just had a smiley face emoji. I didn't think anything of it. People were kind of, a bit of conspiracy theory here and there as to who he was getting, blah, 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 blah. But now it obviously comes clear. He fights Nate Diaz in a lightweight contest, which is scheduled to be the co-main event at UFC 230. Now, UFC 230 obviously contains, a lot of middleweight fights. You've got Paulo Costa, Yoel Romero, still kind of up in the air on that fight, whether the deal's going to be done. But for now, it's provisionally on the card. We've also got Luke Rockhold against Chris Weidman. People also assume that, we'd probably get Robert Whittaker's title defense on that card, but nothing as of yet. Now, Lance Pugmire was the guy who broke the news about Dustin Poirier and also, Nate Diaz. But he also confirmed that, so the UFC are due to hold a press conference this evening, Friday, at 9:30 Irish time, to basically go through all of the main events for the rest of the year. And he understands that the UFC 230 main event won't be announced tonight. And that's what I'm kind of thinking about Conor and Khabib. Obviously Conor was in New York. Obviously you saw his Instagram, you saw social media, whatever, during the week. In New York, pictures all around New York, blah, blah, kind of hyping up something. He claimed that the fight was going to be in Vegas, but, promotional stuff in New York. And now obviously a fight in Madison Square Garden between Dustin Poirier and Nate Diaz with no main event to be announced as of yet. You would think that that's what they're looking for. Obviously, that card is in November, which would be a perfect kind of opportunity to get the build up or whatever. And obviously, the UFC wants to have a big New York card every year around November. Every year, be fitting because obviously Conor fought there last time, won the lightweight belt against Eddie Alvarez. More narrative, but have him regain the belt against Khabib, if that should come into fruition. But also interesting enough, actually, on Khabib's side of the story is that he says he came out yesterday and said that he won't fight until they give him the money that he deserves. Obviously, it's a fight that's in the works, and they're gonna have to really, really sell it. It makes sense now if they were to do it in New York, because all eyes will be on the Madison Square Garden in November. You've got Nate Diaz there, who's a big draw. Dustin Poirier, he's on a tear, also a big draw, big name, and the narrative is there for them to build up future fights, whether win, lose or draw in any of these fights. They could build up a super narrative. They could, if Conor loses to Khabib, Diaz loses to Poirier. Even if Diaz was to beat Poirier, even if Conor was to beat Khabib, it doesn't matter what happens. The scenario for the UFC is money. It doesn't matter what happens. Poirier is a big name. He could fight Khabib for the title if he goes out and beats Nate Diaz. Conor McGregor goes back down, fights Diaz for a third time, seal off the trilogy in the rubber match. Either way, it's crazy, and I would hold off booking flights for October in Las Vegas for UFC 229. That's what it is. And I only say that for the fact that the UFC just throws audibles left, right and centre, and I think it's a perfect card for them to have it in New York. It makes sense. I know Conor McGregor's Irish lawyer dropped a tweet the other day saying the fight was on in October, and in the background there was flight information, with regards to from Dublin or London to Vegas, saying with the caption "It's on." Quickly deleted that tweet. So, I had a lot of people saying, "Look, we're gonna book flights for October. Hope the fight is on." But again, we don't know what's going to happen. I'm sure they will announce something. But we'll know more tonight by about 10 o'clock, I'd say. So I'd say hold off on your flight booking and your accommodation booking, because New York, I think, is a destination the fight's going to be. I didn't think it was going to be, but until they literally just said that they're not going to announce the UFC 230 main event, this has me thinking, okay, obviously Poirier's on the card, Diaz is on the card. It makes a lot of sense. A lot of Irish in New York. The narrative is there, like I say. They can really sell this as a kind of Conor McGregor last won the title in MSG. Can he reclaim it again? Blah, blah, blah. That kind of stuff. And obviously Diaz, the build up. I think they're going to want to have them on the same card, because it's going to be big, big money. And towards the end of the year, the UFC needs to make a profit. Their pay-per-views have been pretty dire. The event this weekend is not great looking on paper. 2 good fights, don't get me wrong, but outside of that, nothing really that would warrant, in the States, a $60, $65, main card purchase. But this fight is going to be huge. I think they'll announce it soon, or they'll tease it somehow tonight anyway. But 9:30, it's going to be on the YouTube channel. You can check it. I'm going to have a link, an article up later on where you can watch that video on the site. So don't worry about that. All the details will be down below, so don't worry about that. That's kind of my kind of hot take, my initial reaction since I woke up. Being able to digest what could happen, potentially will happen, but if that's the way it's going to be, I think that's how the UFC are going to play it. I'm not saying book your flights by any means, but I would say main event Conor Khabib, co-main event Dustin Poirier, Nate Diaz. It just makes sense. I know they have a host of middleweight fights on that card too, but it makes a ton of sense for them to have those 2 fights come one after the other. And it also then fits a nice timeline. All guys, fought on the same card, same time frame to potentially book future matchups, in and around the same time, and keep that going, because the lightweight division needs it right now. But it's such an interesting time. Like I said, we'll find out tonight at this press conference before the ceremonial weigh-ins begin, and yeah, that's about it. That's just my quick hot take as to what's happening with the whole situation with Conor Khabib's title fight, and obviously the news that broke about Nate Diaz's return against Dustin Poirier. Like I say, guys, and until later on this evening, I guess, let the anticipation build, and keep an eye out on the site for news, articles, views, everything else in between. All the links down below, like I say, and until next time, guys, I'll see you later.